the gray chill of a California morning on November 12, 1942, the fog rolled low across San Francisco Bay, muting the clang of steel and the hiss of torches. At the Permanente Metals Corporation yard in Richmond, a restless crowd gathered near the waterfront. Welders, riveters, clerks, mothers with scarves tied over their hair, farmhands in overalls, all watching something that seemed impossible. Before them stood a brand-new Liberty ship, the SS Robert E. Peary, 441 feet of welded steel, weighing over 28 million pounds, ready to slide into the bay. Just 4 days earlier, there had been only bare ground and stacked parts. Now a full-sized ocean-going vessel waited for her launch. The loudspeakers crackled, the band began to play, and as the chocks were pulled away, the ship moved first slowly, then gathering speed, slipping into the cold green water while the crowd erupted in cheers. What they were witnessing wasn't just a launch, it was a revolution. The Peary had been built in 4 days, 15 hours, 29 minutes, shattering every record in shipbuilding history. Only 2 years before, the man behind this miracle, Henry J. Kaiser, had never built a ship in his life. He was 58 years old, known for pouring concrete, not commanding shipyards. He had helped construct the Hoover Dam and the Grand Coulee Dam, not battleships or tankers. Yet in 1940, as Nazi submarines strangled the Atlantic, Kaiser signed a contract with the U.S. Maritime, commissioned to build 30 cargo ships for Britain. The old shipbuilding establishment laughed. Kaiser was a dam builder, not a naval engineer. Ships, they said, were the work of craftsmen, skilled riveters, seasoned shipwrights, men who spent decades learning their trade. You couldn't just mass-produce a ship like a car, but Kaiser believed you could. He saw ships as giant steel machines, not mystical art, and machines, he knew, could be assembled. To prove it, he sent his chief engineer, Clay Bedford, to study Ford's assembly lines in Detroit. Bedford watched chassis glide past workers, each adding one small part in sequence, every motion timed and repeatable. When he returned to California, he told Kaiser, "We can do this with ships." Kaiser's idea was simple but radical: prefabrication and welding. Traditional builders used millions of rivets, each one hammered by hand in a deafening rhythm that demanded perfect teamwork. Welding replaced that with arcs of electricity, faster, stronger, lighter. It terrified the old-timers. They said welding such large plates would make ships brittle, that the seams would crack in the cold sea. But the clock was ticking. German U-boats were sinking ships faster than America could build them. Britain's supply lines were collapsing, so the government took a gamble and gave Kaiser the green light. What rose from the mudflats of Richmond was something the world had never seen: an industrial cathedral built for speed. Instead of narrow slips, Kaiser's yard stretched wide like a car plant. Giant cranes moved prefabricated hull sections built in separate zones. The bow, stern, and cargo holds came together like puzzle pieces on rails. Veteran shipbuilders visiting the yard were horrified. It violated every rule they knew. But within months, the results spoke for themselves. Kaiser didn't wait for experts. He hired whoever was willing to learn: farmers, school teachers, housewives, teenagers, black laborers from the South, immigrants who barely spoke English, and trained them for a single, repeatable job. One worker learned to weld a seam, another aligned bulkheads, another operated cranes. Within weeks, unskilled civilians became specialists in one piece of a vast human machine. "If you can hold a torch steady," Kaiser told them, "you can build a ship." Morale soared. Production times fell. The first Liberty ship took 197 days, the next one 69, then a 128. By spring 1942, a ship could be finished in 70 days. Riveters scoffed, but the yards kept humming day and night, lit by floodlights and fueled by black coffee and determination. Each launch became a celebration. Workers signed their names inside the steel, kissed the hulls for luck, and watched their handiwork slide into the bay to join convoys bound for war. Kaiser pushed harder. He introduced parallel production, building different parts of the ship at once, rather than in sequence. While one crew welded the hull, another assembled the engine block and deckhouses. When ready, cranes lifted the finished modules into place like blocks in a giant toy set. Tasks that once took weeks now took hours. The Navy called it madness. Then they saw the results. Competition grew fierce between Kaiser's yards, his son Edgar running Oregon, Bedford running Richmond. Records fell one after another: a ship in 10 days, then 8, then 6. Finally, The Robert E. Peary shattered all expectations. Built from pre-staged sections, welded around the clock by more than 1,000 workers in rotating shifts, she went from blueprint to launch in less than 5 days. Vice Admiral Emory Land, who had once dismissed Kaiser's welding as reckless, stood speechless at the launch, admitting, 6 months ago, "I would have called this impossible." The ripple effects were immediate. Other shipyards copied Kaiser's methods. By 1943, the average Liberty ship was finished in 42 days. America was now producing ships faster than German submarines, could sink them 3 ships a day leaving the ways. Each one carried the lifeblood of war: tanks, jeeps, ammunition, food. The Liberty ships were not elegant. They were slow, boxy, and plain. Sailors joked they looked like a shoebox with a smokestack. But they floated, and they delivered. And that was enough. Kaiser's revolution didn't just build ships, it rebuilt society. His yards employed nearly 200,000 people, including 40,000 women, the famous Rosies with their scarves and welding masks, who proved that strength and skill weren't limited by gender. Thousands of Black Americans joined integrated crews, learning trades that offered new futures after the war. Kaiser didn't just hire them, he built for them. The population of Richmond exploded from 23,000 to over 100,000 in 3 years. In Oregon, he founded Vanport City, a planned community for 40,000 shipyard workers and families, complete with schools, recreation halls, and medical care. Out of that came another legacy, Kaiser's company health plan, which evolved into Kaiser Permanente, still one of America's largest healthcare systems. By 1945, Kaiser's yards had produced 490 ships, nearly a quarter of America's wartime fleet. In total, 2710 Liberty ships were launched nationwide, an achievement unmatched in history. The Liberty ship became the backbone of Allied logistics, carrying the supplies that sustained troops from North Africa to Normandy to the Pacific. They weren't built to last forever, designed for just 5 years of service, but many sailed for decades afterward. A few survive today, like the SS Jeremiah O'Brien in San Francisco and the SS John W. Brown in Baltimore, living museums to a moment when ordinary Americans achieved the extraordinary. Kaiser's innovations went far beyond wartime. His prefabrication methods became the foundation of modern shipbuilding. After the war, nations like Japan and South Korea adopted his techniques, giving birth to massive industrial shipyards that still dominate the world's oceans. The same logic, modular construction, streamlined labor, repeatable efficiency, migrated into housing, bridges, and aerospace. Even NASA engineers later studied Kaiser's methods for large-scale assembly. For Kaiser, success was never about perfection, it was about progress. Perfection, one admiral admitted, is the enemy of sufficient. The Liberty ships weren't perfect, but they were there when they were needed. And that, more than anything, won the war. When Admiral Chester Nimitz looked back years later, he said, "Japan's generals believed they could sink ships faster than we could build them." They didn't count on Henry Kaiser. Behind every Liberty ship was a story of human resolve. Men and women working 16-hour shifts through rain and fog. Mothers leaving children at night to weld hulls under blue sparks. Immigrants writing home that they were helping win the war with their own hands. Each launch was a personal victory, a reminder that the front lines stretched all the way back to the factory floor. When the Robert E. Peary slid into the bay, people cheered not just for the ship but for themselves. They had proved that impossible was temporary. By war's end, Kaiser was already dreaming ahead. Post-war homes built like ships, cars built like planes, hospitals for every worker. His health plan expanded, his construction empire spread, and his philosophy, that ordinary people, properly organized and inspired, can accomplish the impossible, became part of America's DNA. Old guard who once mocked him had to admit that his assembly line navy had saved civilization. Today, the rusting hulls of Liberty ships lie scattered across the oceans, but their spirit endures in every modern dock and shipyard. Each time a massive vessel slides into the sea, somewhere in that thunder of water and steel, echoes the sound that filled Richmond Bay on that November afternoon in 1942, the sound of the Robert E. Peary hitting the water. It was the sound of innovation, courage, and unity, the sound of a nation proving that limits are illusions. Henry Kaiser didn't just build ships. He built belief that through determination, imagination, and teamwork, humanity can reshape its destiny.